Testing, testing. Okay, guys, I'm going to send you the link to this new one. Okay, guys, I've just sent an email out with the new link to the new Hangout. I'll try to stitch the two videos together in the replay, but I'm going to keep going with we just have a few left to look at, and I want to hit them tonight. So sorry about that connection. I've got an AT&T guy coming over tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. We're going to try to get to the bottom of these weird faulty connections. Anyway, uh, I'll resume the going through the folder. Okay. Okay, I'm going to share the screen now and we will be back in business. Okay, we just got a few left to go through. Share the screen. Bear with me as I reset everything. The whole computer, the whole internet connection just crashed on me and I lost everything. Okay, we're all back together again, right? Let's go to Liz's folder right here. And I love these little notes where we can talk to each other inside the Google Drive folder. This is perfect. This way we can address your concerns and questions. First image is a sketch. I cannot figure out the perspective on the table. Okay, that was actually the last one. Second image is my tree exercise. I used an old piece of paper. I should have stuck with my Arch 140 pound. Okay, well, um, uh, lesson learned. 140 pound is a good weight. That means 500 sheets weigh 140 pounds if you get those big 22 by 30-inch sheets, and those are good for the kind of painting we're the kind of exercises we're doing now, and for your illustrations. Third are my images thus far from this course. I'm learning so much with each one. Thanks, Liz. Okay, great, Liz. Let's look at what you've been doing for the course. We've been enjoying seeing these scenes over the months. Your little girl character is so cute, and you've really got her looking consistent from image to image. Now she looks a little taller in this shot than she does here, and I'm just measuring her legs from, she's occupies about the same amount of picture space. She's the same little girl, but I'm measuring her both, her legs, lower leg and upper leg, and I'm comparing them to this little girl here, and she looks quite a bit younger. So here she looks like pre-teen, she looks like she's going on 11 or 12, and here she might be closer to 5. So here she looks age 4 to 5, and I'm just going by the proportions of her limbs and the proportion of her trunk, her upper torso. So keep those images consistent, get references for the age of the child you want, and stick with it, and you'll be fine. But they're so cute, and the sensitivity, the relationship between a child and animals is just priceless and precious, and the compositions are lovely. Yeah, we just really have been enjoying seeing these little scenes develop. I love your animals too. I love how I feel the dog taking a step here, and the dog in perfect peace and repose here, talking with the squirrel. They're just lovely. So great tree exercise. I'm really proud of this one. You've got a beautiful glow in the sky, and you've got this ethereal early morning look to the tree. It's taking the morning light. You can see the sunlight spilling in around both sides of the tree from the light of the sky behind the tree. You feel the light source. You feel the reflecting sunlight, the sparkle. Because you've saved this white paper, and you very carefully build it up with these beautiful glazes that are clearly 20%, 30% color glazes, all of them different shapes. I see you're not repeating yourself with any of the shapes, and you're leaving all this beautiful white space. Oh, it's just so nice to see. And the foliage looks really good. Yeah, this was a nice job on this one. I see your paper watermark down there. Good. It makes a difference to use the right professional grade paper, doesn't it? I love how you made this tree your own. Some dry brushing down here. So you went off script a little bit and did some new stuff. And I love your negative shapes inside the dark grasses under the the base where the bunny rabbits roam in there, and the negative space texture of grass cutting into the darks. And yeah, you could afford to put a few more dark accent lines or bark texture detail now, just ever so sparingly in the trunk, and bring it into focus even a little more, but just protect those. I would put the darks over darks that you've already got, or the darker midtones. You don't necessarily need to put darks in any of these lovely lighter spaces that you've created for us, because you're doing such a good job of showing the light source and the tree and the light. So well done. Well done assignment. Okay, this is the sketch where you had some difficulty with some frustration with the perspective on the scene. The girl character looks real cute, and there's her collie. So yeah, so I did a real quick throw together sort of thing to sort of address how I might treat the perspective if I were doing the scene. So that in every image, the first thing you've got to decide is where is the eye level or the horizon line. I know you've heard that term a million times, and we cover this in the videos in the main body of the course, the website of the course, in the Pounce on Perspective, I think is the name of the title. You might check those over again, but the horizon line is the first thing. It's the active ingredient of perspective in your sketch, right? And you've done that here. You may not realize it, but you've given us a horizon line. I would wager right here where her eye level is, because of the way you've placed her in this scene. So this scene has an eye level, even though they're indoors, and it has a horizon line. The horizon line is the same thing as the eye level, and you've placed us almost as if we're sitting across the table from her. Our eyes are about here too. You've set that for us by drawing her this way, and also by putting in the perspective that you did put in. You've sort of reaffirmed that you want us to be at her eye level, as if we're maybe a slightly older child or somebody her age sitting across the table. So that's what I've got here on mine. And you can see here's my eye level right there. Now, if she's sitting down, mom working in the back of the kitchen is going to be a little bit taller, right? Because mom's eye level is up here. If our protagonist was standing up, mom might be a head taller than her. So, but she's not. She's sitting down. So that puts her quite a bit lower, even though we're at her eye level because we're sitting down too. But mom is, in contrast, is a little taller. So I've got her taller than you do. And I've got her eye level hitting at about the mom's waist, which places her in the room a little better. And then here's the sinks back here, cupboards back here. The window is just beginning to start back here. Now, you've suggested perspective by showing the ellipse of the table. So the ellipse, if that's the ellipse, then the pie and the plate should be kind of mimic the same, about the same kind of circle. Does that make sense? Because they're both at the same place in the composition with respect to the eye level line. So what I did was I forget this line here. That was the original frame in my picture, and I realized I had to expand. So that is nothing. This line means nothing right there. But I've changed the curve because this is what circles are doing at the eye level. At the eye level, if that pie was up about her, where her eyes are, if somebody was holding it in front of her, we wouldn't see any of the disc, right? We'd see the side view of the pie. And then the further down from the eye level, her eye level, the pie gets, we start to see the ellipse taking on more and more of a circular shape as it goes lower in the space, as it moves further away from this important line right here. So I tried to draw my dinner plate overlapped by the pie and the round kitchen table. They all pretty much have the same ellipse going for them because they're pretty much in the same place in the picture space, in the picture geography. So you see how I've drawn them a little differently, and I gave my table a little less of a circle because it's not so far down lower than her eye level that it needs to be a big old circle. It's an ellipse that has taken shape naturally, 2.5 feet below her eyes. Okay. The other thing is the kitchen table. If it's a standard table height, the dog, as big as that dog is going to be just. And of course, your dog is so much cuter than mine. Your girl is too, but this doesn't look anything like a collie. But he's down lower. I put him down lower because he'd be, this would, if this is him, then the table has much shorter legs than your typical kitchen table, right? So there's another issue of perspective. Just we're trying to suggest the table height in relation to where it hits the girl seated and the dog's head. So it's cute that the dog would be looking, just flopping his head over the table, barely able to reach over the table head. So that was my thought. Are there any? I'm going to check you for questions. Um, if you're in the room with us. So hang on, Liz. Let me get back to our spot. Oh, okay. Good. Yeah, spend a few evenings of perspective and you'll get it. And you'll have it for the rest of your life. Uh, age 5 is what you're going for with a girl. Great. Okay, good. Good. Hey, Phoebe. Good, guys. Okay, let's go back and see where we are. Beautiful, beautiful contribution to the evening with all of these. Liz, thank you. Eleanor. Eleanor is in Italy, so she can't join us live. She's going to watch the replay, and I'll have to make sure she gets both of these video links. But she has uploaded what she's called a value sketch for her story about her super flying superhero kid right here, charging in with his flying machine to the barn. So we'll come back and look at that in a minute. Here's her exercises. Beautiful job. Eleanor, you got just the right notes on this on the bamboo leaf, and I know they do take a little practice, but you've got it. You understand the exercise, and you're just going to keep playing with it. And who knows the different ways you might be using this technique of sculpting a form, any kind of form, flimsy or solid or ethereal, with sculpting it by just having a value change somewhere in the form. So it's all it takes, and it just requires observation, studying your reference, and then getting that second value note just right, or as we saw, within a margin of error of just right. Okay, and then great job on the different brushing exercises. There aren't that many ways to show texture in watercolor. One of them is dry brushing, which she's done beautifully here. You've done beautifully here, and the other one is wet into wet, and then dry brushing. Let's see, this is dry brushing. What did we call this? Dusting. It was a form of dry brushing where you just dust the paint pigment softly on with your brush that's almost completely dry, but it's got pigment in it, and you create this kind of effect. Dry brushing is the brush is a little more loaded with a liquid pigment, but you're holding it sideways and you're bumping along the textured cold press watercolor paper, and you get all these beautiful white spots. And then the hard edge that you get when you're painting wet over dry paper. Yep, beautiful job, beautiful glaze. See, we don't see any brush strokes in that, do we? See how smooth that is? I had a kid at a school visit. He was talking about the pictures in one of my books that I was at the school talking about, and he was looking at my washes. He said, "It looks like a machine made it," and I took that as a compliment. He was a little 5-year-old, yeah, we want to look like a machine made it instead of a human being. And then you wet the edge of this little brush mark to create a soft edge. So you softened your edge here. You got a hard edge, which gives us a nice textury line, beautiful, right on this side, and then a softened edge on the other. And you'll use both edges and it reminds me of a camera that has different parts of the subject are out of focus because of the depth of field. So parts of the portrait are sharp and crystal, but as you go back to the subject's ears and hair, they might be sort of soft and blurry, and that's a nice look. It's the way a lot of us see anyway. And so your imagery can have both soft edges and hard line edges, lost and found edges, and very well defined contrasty edges. All of that to create variety and change in your composition. So very good up there, the top half. It's great. And then I was just real struck by how well you did the saturation with the spots. So this is the drill we should all practice once a week until we have it in our DNA. Mix your paint puddle in such a way that you can lay down a 10% wash, a 20% wash. And this is where she took paint right out of the tube and worked it on her paper. So no sunlight, no bounce light from the white paper is coming through. It's just pure pigment, and it's not reflective. It's almost like she's using oil. It is like she's using oil paint or acrylic opaquely, and she's just putting it down. And then she went through as shown in the video to get her different washes. And if you can learn to real quickly mix a puddle and slap down a 20% or 30% wash or both without even thinking about it, that's your starting point. And from there, you build up gradually, very patiently. You build up your washes to get your darks and your saturated paint passages. They're built layer by layer, brick by brick, as it were. And it pays off, as you can see in this tree, that patient approach and controlling your paint, controlling the glazes that you're putting down will really pay off for you. And you don't have to be afraid of making a mistake because you're working so incrementally. And this is a beautiful example of the exercise. You can see the blue shapes that she left bits of white. She made shapes different. She came over with the warm tones, earth tones. She put in a lovely sky that's completely believable. She's got some hard lines clouds, which we do see. And then she's got soft edge clouds where the color went wet into wet. Remember, we wet the paper and then we laid drippy wet color over parts of the wet paper, leaving parts of the paper white for clouds. Watercolor was meant to do skies with, and wet into wet is the everybody's favorite watercolor brushing technique. Eleanor went a step further and even gave us some nice textural ground down here. And she did some glazed washes and dropped some color notes into the washes, and voila, tree scene. And I like her darks, and see how she did negative painting here, cutting the grass shapes by painting around the grass shapes with these dark pigments, dark greens. Okay. And then she did the swatches too. Very effective. I like the miniature approach. That's kind of cute on this little scratch sheet. These are great exercises. This is how Bud Big starts his book. He says, if you don't do this exercise first thing, and don't skip this exercise, he says, this is the foundation. And it's that glazing. Wait till the first layer is dry and then go over it with another 30% wash, and you can create your own colors, your own effects, your own muddy colors, your own darks. You can go all the way to the dark of the paper. Let's read Eleanor's note. I apologize for not being able to attend the huddles. It'd be 1 a.m. in Italy. And she says, cold press, 140-pound cloth paper sure makes a difference. Yeah, I'm glad yes. And there's her color wheel that we're going to be doing in May. And I'll show you how to use it. This is in the course, of course, and some of you have already been through it, I think, but we'll review it together. I'll do another video. This is powerful magic using this color wheel. That's my phone, and I'm going to just... I'll call this person back in a second. Okay, good. And the color wheel spots are beautiful glazes too. You did that really well, Eleanor. Okay. All right. I think we got one more. Catherine. And she managed to get a little flower scene for us, and it's very charming. And Catherine, you found a way to upload it, so good for you. Proud of you. And See how Catherine is using value changes in the simplest things, these beautiful leaves, these beautiful things. Isn't this effective? I mean, it has a quality of folk art or Pennsylvania Dutch design, but it goes one better because she puts these naturalistic sculpting form with color change and value change. And look how effective it is, how pretty it is. It could use some darks. So what you could do if you were working it over, Catherine, is put a little dark cast shadow maybe under the blossom here on this stem. You've got a form shadow all the way down the stems. You could introduce some cast shadows. This is kind of a cast shadow in here, isn't it? That one blossom is putting over the other. There's cast shadows in here. Cast shadows in here. But you could add just a few more little darks. And when we talk about color in May, we're going to talk about how to make those darks. Because watercolor painters in particular, tend to paint too light, start off painting too light, and they don't know how to go dark, and they're scared to go dark. Well, we'll power through all that next month. And then you'll know how to paint light with skill and control, and you'll know how to paint dark the same way and still keep it transparent. So that's what we'll be covering next time. But this is lovely. I love the texture you put in your leaves. All these beautiful, I mean, clearly you've used watercolor before, and you kind of know how it's supposed to be. These little value changes, well, I mean, look at the elements of design right here. You've got values happening. You've got shapes, incredible shapes, color, direction, texture. Look at the grass. Look at these leaves, scratchy leaves. It all works together, doesn't it? All right, so let's go back. See where we are. Have I left anybody out? Comments? Questions? Are we still broadcasting? So glad I have the tech guy coming in tomorrow. Guys, I'm going to stop screencasting here. Check one more time for questions, and we'll say goodnight otherwise. Oh, Oksana, okay. Well, we'll have a video, and then we'll have another meeting on the 29th of May. Liz says she can't wait to redo the drawing. Good. Good. Okay, guys, thank you for your patience, and sorry about the internet crash. I'll stitch the two videos together and put them up on the watch page and the homework page, and I'll send a link out tomorrow to everyone with the two replays together. And thanks for turning in the beautiful work. It was fun, and we can look at more on the 15th. Okay. Good night, everybody.